Hello everyone, back tuning into today's second video. We're going to have a look at the weather for the next week to 10 days for today's second video. So this will take us around the 20th of December, and we'll be able to extend out a little bit beyond that with the extended GFS. So that's taking us into the Christmas period. Until the Christmas, we'll have the 18th Christmas update for you tonight around 7 o'clock. For the final time, I think, we'll have CFS V2. And then after tonight, I think we'll pretty much discard the CFS and we'll move on to the GFS. But more about that this evening. I'm getting ahead of myself. So today's second video is going to have a look at weather next week to 10 days. We'll see what's going on in terms of the latest forecast of the stratosphere as well over North Pole. Is that stratospheric warming still on the way towards Christmas? I'll show you in a moment the very latest. I'll have a look at CFS V2 for the next month as well. So a lot to cram into this video. Hope you find it interesting and informative. The first video up today was the verification of the autumn 2018 forecast. So we've gone over the autumn forecast, had a look at the climate averages from UK Met, and I think overall the forecast was okay. Some things were better than others, but have a look at the verification if you get the chance to see how the autumn panned out. Before I get on with anything else, I'm going to say a big thank you to our latest PayPal donor. So, Anders Figerson has become our latest donor for Gazovitz. Big thank you to Anders for becoming our latest PayPal donor. So if you would like to give a donation to Gazovitz, you can do it through the Gazovitz.me PayPal page. And this is it, I'm on that page right now. We link to this at all of the pages at Gazovitz and in the description at YouTube. So you can just come to the PayPal.me page, sign into your PayPal account, and then you can send whatever amount of money you would like as a one-off donation. Alternatively, there's also the Gazovitz Patreon page. This is it. We are now up to 51 patrons. So if you would prefer to give an ongoing donation to Gazovitz, so you can do that via the Gazovitz Patreon page. And with this, you just come here, sign up for a Patreon account, and then you can pledge an ongoing monthly donation. Of course, you can cancel at any time, but the idea is that this one is ongoing, and PayPal is kind of like one-off. Either way, you're helping to support the website. You're helping us to keep the content completely free of charge. So a big thank you to everybody for doing that. You're helping to pay for the website, essentially, and allow us to keep doing what we're doing. So big thank you to all of the patrons. Big thank you to all of those. Special thank you to Anders Figerson. I hope I got the name right, for sending us our latest donation. Big thank you to everybody for doing that. Right, so let's get on with the video. We're going to start off by having a look at what's happening in the stratosphere over the North Pole. So this is the latest in terms of what the GFS is forecasting. This is for the 18th of December. Now, we've got these blue and purple colours. They are the cold temperatures at 10 HPA, which is one of the highest levels of the atmosphere and the stratosphere over the North Pole. So, of course, it's a pretty cold time of year at the moment, with temperatures cooling down rapidly, both in the atmosphere and down on the surface over the North Pole. So you expect to be seeing those blue and purple colours. Over the past week or so, the GFS in its extended range has very much been set on producing a major warming of the stratosphere over Siberia. Let's see if it's still doing it. Well, we get to the 22nd of December. Notice those green and yellow colours suddenly intensifying over Siberia very rapidly, going to red colours, and those red colours then intensifying, becoming very intense with those deep red colours. That's a major sudden stratospheric warming that is occurring over Siberia and beginning to penetrate in towards the North Pole there as we're going through Christmas. So this is still being focused around the Christmas period. Will this be something that we look back on as a defining moment of this winter, this Christmas sudden stratospheric warming? It's too far away to say that, but that is certainly a very major and significant warming of the stratosphere that's taking place over Siberia, not into the Arctic at this point, although by the time you get to the very end of the GFS run, which is the Boxing Day, 26th of December, we are seeing signs of infiltrating those bright colours in towards the North Pole itself in terms of the stratosphere. The reason we look at this is because when you get a major warming of the stratosphere like this, a sudden stratospheric warming, after around 2 or 3 weeks, sometimes it can be sooner than that, but generally it takes a couple of weeks, you'll find that bubble of warmth going into the troposphere, and then that sets up a blocking area, or it can set up, it doesn't always work out, but it usually sets up a blocking area of high pressure in the troposphere, and that's the boundary of the atmosphere where weather is taking place. So sudden stratospheric warming tends to be a precursor to a large blocking area of high pressure forming within the northern latitudes. Blocking is the route to push a cold air out of the pole and down into the mid latitudes. So a lot, not all of them, but a lot of our coldest spells tend to be preceded by a sudden stratospheric warming. The key is you never know where the blocking is going to set up. Well, there's two things you don't know. You don't know whether you're going to get a tropospheric response to what's happening in the stratosphere. Sometimes you don't set up the blocking area of high pressure for whatever reason. Then the other thing is that you never, if you do set up a block, you never quite know where that block is going to be sitting. So if, for example, it's on the Canadian side of the Arctic, then that would tend to favour pushing cold air down into North America. If it's on the Pacific side of the Arctic, then it will favour pushing cold air down into Asia, like Japan, China, those sort of areas. If it's on the Greenland side, the Atlantic side, though, of the Arctic, then we will push cold air down into Europe and into the UK. So all eyes will be on this sudden stratospheric warming if it comes off over Christmas, and it'll be keeping us on our toes, I would have thought, for the Christmas period. One thing we'll be looking for, if we do get a sudden stratospheric warming, we will be looking for a reversal of the zonal winds. So this is from the University of Berlin website, and this is depicting the zonal winds at 1 HPA. So this blue line show, and that's right at the very, very top of the stratosphere, 1 HPA. So the blue colours there show where we've been in terms of the strength of zonal winds at 1 HPA. The black line is where the ECMWF is forecasting the zonal winds to go in the next 10 days or so. So at the moment we're around here. We're relatively strong with the zonal winds, probably about where you'd expect us to be really this time of the year. Weakening of the zonal winds is going to take place over the next week or so. Not a reversal, but we do see quite a drop in the strength of the zonal winds, and then beginning to pick up perhaps a little bit as we're running up towards Christmas. If that sudden stratospheric warming comes off, and if those warm temperatures penetrate into the stratosphere over the North Pole, then we may well find a reversal of the zonal winds taking place. If that happens, this black line will crash and it will go down to that kind of level. It will go down to around 0. And then again, going further down to 1 and 30 HPA, so that's this blue line and this red line, we will again see the line sort of going down to that level, going down again to 0. When you get that happening, when you get a reversal of the zonal winds, that tells you that you are getting a tropospheric response to the stratospheric warming, and you will then be looking to start developing blocking within the troposphere over the North Pole. So that's a bit of a heads up for what we'll be looking at if this sudden stratospheric warming does take place and gets into the pole over Christmas. All eyes on that in around, what are we now? So it'll be in around a couple of weeks' time, I suppose. Right, so this is the latest from Penn State University. We've got the 500 millibar height anomaly flowcharts. The ECMWF is here on the top. The GFS is on the bottom. 500 millibars, 8,000 feet is an area in the atmosphere. High pressure, low pressure are being moved around by the jet stream running above. Red extrapolates high pressure, blue to low pressure. These are the mean flowcharts for the next week to 10 days. It'll take us around the 20th of December with below average heights over and to the west of the UK, looking very unsettled on the ECMWF solution. The black lines and the green line here is the jet stream. That's generally a little bit to the south of the UK, so we're on the cold side of the jet there. And we do have quite a blocking signal up here as well. We've got above average heights sitting to our north. Not a very strong block, but we do have some ridging going on to our north. However, it's not a particularly cold scenario because we've also got this ridge down here from the Azores going in towards Spain and Portugal. So that's going to keep the wind direction generally from a westerly point. To go into a properly cold pattern, you need to get rid of these heights down here. I've spoken about this before in my videos, but if you have a strong Azores high, you're going to struggle to get any sustained cold weather. You either need to move the Azores high that way, or you preferably get into a prolonged cold spell, you want to move it over towards sort of Bermuda, that kind of area just there. So where the Azores high is sitting is where it should be sitting. At this time of the year, it's around the Azores and going into Iberia, but that's not quite right to get into a properly cold pattern. Then we've got the GFS, of course, as well, so this looking very unsettled with the below average heights over top of the UK once again. We do still have that block sitting up to our northeast, not quite strong enough to turn the winds into the east, so we will get a couple of days of easterly winds this week, Thursday and Friday, and now looking quite cold before it starts to turn milder again over the weekend. The above average heights remain down to our south through there, and so the jet stream comes in off the Atlantic, just looks rather unsettled, not overly mild because we are still trending that jet stream a little bit southwards, so we're not talking about long fetch southwesterly coming up from the tropical Atlantic. This is not a December 2015 type pattern. Just generally on the mild-ish side at times, but maybe quite cool at times as well, but very unsettled. Both models agreeing on that, with a trough of low pressure right over top of the country. GFS ensembles are looking like this. We're at Norwich today. So the red line here is the 30-year upper air temperature average for Norwich, and now we have got a bit of a cold snap that's appeared. This has crept up on us over the past few days, over the weekend. It's gradually, GFS gradually been trending that little bit colder run by run, and so now, yes, we do have 2 or 3 days of quite cold weather appearing from around Wednesday through to Friday as we turn that wind into the east. Over the weekend, the temperature stages a rapid recovery, going back up to or maybe even a little bit above average, and then after that we just keep temperatures very close to average on this ensemble graph, albeit by the time you get towards Christmas there is a lot of scatter. So we have got several ensemble members that are very mild, but we have got several that are really quite cold as well. So for Christmas, maybe there are still various options on the table. The change to very unsettled conditions has been delayed a little bit as well, as it's turning colder over the next few days. We also set up quite a dry spell now through to the end of the week, but then it looks as though the weekend is when we unleash that Atlantic deluge that we have been expecting. So where do we go next? We go to the temperature anomaly. So temperature anomalies from the 10th through to the 18th of December are coming out close to average now, not a big deviation. I suppose England and Wales maybe as a slightly above average still, but overall I think that is more or less about average in terms of the temperature anomaly for the week. Air precipitation anomalies very close to average again. So not a huge amount going on with the temperature and precipitation anomalies now in the next week. They're both looking very close to average. This is how the latest GFS operational run is looking. This is for Thursday. The high pressure has strengthened over Scandinavia. So this little battle that's been going on over, been quite a big battle actually, been going on over the model output for the past few days, has resolved itself, at least in the next few days. It's resolved itself in favour of the Scandinavian high, keeping these areas of low pressure at bay out in the Atlantic and pulling in pretty cold southeasterly winds. So they're kind of like southeasterly winds, but the air is originating from the east, so the air is coming across Europe and then doing something a bit like that. So it's a cold source that we have, despite the fact it's a little bit of a southeasterly, and so you will feel the chill, I think, especially across eastern parts of the country through the second half of this week, and there could be some quite hard night frost if skies clear as well. We keep that going into Friday as well, so Thursday and Friday could both be pretty cold days, to be honest, with the Atlantic really struggling. However, by the time you get through to Saturday, then we get this push of milder winds from the southwest. So although the Scandinavian high does win the battle temporarily, it looks like it loses the war, and as we go into the weekend, we go into a very unsettled spell of weather with wind turning into the west. And then that takes us through to next week, looking really unsettled, low pressure crashing in from off the Atlantic, bringing showers or longer spells of rain as well. We're up to day 10, which is Thursday the 20th of December. We saw it on the height anomaly flow chart, very unsettled at day 10, with this area of low pressure centred over top of the UK. That's a real trough within the 500 millibar flow. Notice we have got relatively high heights to our west, and still to some degree up to the northeast as well, and so you would only have to push this low pressure, this trough southwards, and you'll probably start setting up more of a blocking pattern up here again. So running up towards Christmas, yes, it does look very unsettled, but not out of the question that things could start to turn a bit cold. And that's actually what happens a little bit beyond day 10. This is Friday the 21st of December. That low pressure starts to move into Central Europe. We begin to turn the wind more into the north or the northeast, although that doesn't last all that long. And as we get to Christmas Eve itself, we're beginning to pull in much milder winds from off the Atlantic, so temperatures are lifting up for Christmas. That's how we finish up on Boxing Day, and we're in a flat westerly flow with sunshine and showers, or potentially even some longer spells of rain. The 18th Christmas update will be coming up tonight. This is the parallel GFS 6 o'clock runs. That's operational. This is the parallel. This will become the operational GFS from next year. Again, we start on Thursday with high pressure over Scandinavia now in control of the pattern, bringing in these cold southeasterly to almost easterly winds, and that continues into Friday as well. So in the next few days, we have upgraded the cold potential compared to what the GFS was showing just a couple of days ago. Now we get through to the weekend, and here comes the push from off the Atlantic. What we have to bear in mind with that, though, of course, is that the GFS around a couple of days ago was forecasting this milder push to happen on Thursday and Friday. Now it's pushing it back to Saturday. So it's possible that as we're going along here, we might see further upgrades to the strength of this Scandinavian high. But I have to wait and see. But at the moment, the GFS definitely wants to break things down on Saturday and bring wet weather in from the Atlantic. Now, this could be preceded by snow, this rain, as it moves in. It will depend how stubborn the cold air is to push out of the way. But rain or snow with gale force winds pushing eastwards on Saturday. And then that forces the block, it forces the Scandinavian high back to west of Russia, and we start to turn winds into the west, going off into quite an unsettled spell as we run up to day 10. That gets us to day 10, which is the 20th of December, looking rather flat. The winds are from the west, and there'll be showers or longer spells of rain. This parallel GFS run, as we get up towards Christmas, keeps things unsettled. High pressure to the south, low pressure to the north. That's how we finish up on Boxing Day. The GEM, again, that has winds from a southeasterly direction and cold southeasters to easters at the end of the week. We do actually pull in a proper easterly wind there as we get through to Friday. Winds have gone from the southeast to the east, and even into Saturday, that Scandinavian high just a little bit more stubborn compared to the GFS. So even on Saturday, these westerlies are struggling to get in. So cold up to Saturday with the GM. That's Sunday. Now that does suggest to me that there could be a bit of a snow event going on there. So that's Sunday. Again, high pressure, very stubborn over Scandinavia. We've moved this low pressure in from the Atlantic, and there's a weather front in that kind of position from the central swathe of the country. Because that high pressure over Scandinavia is that a little bit stronger, particularly compared to what the GFS is showing, I reckon that is very close to a snow event as the low pressure, the westerlies are trying to dislodge the cold air. And even up to Monday and Tuesday, you see the Atlantic is really, really struggling here with the GEM. So this is Tuesday next week. I think by now we have tilted the wind kind of like to the south, so it is becoming a little bit milder. but it's nothing like what the GFS is showing for this period. It's not an Atlantic onslaught. We still have relatively high pressure over Scandinavia. And the jet stream, of course, is down there where the black line is. So the Atlantic really struggling with the GEM even into the start of next week. That's how we look at day 10. Seemingly then the Atlantic is beginning to crank itself up, but of course that's a very, very long way out. And it does show that even for next weekend or this weekend, there is a little bit of uncertainty within the model output. And then this is the ECMWF with the high pressure over Scandinavia. The low pressure is out to west of the country on Thursday. And still cold with those southeasterly to easterly winds for Friday as well. There's the push from off the Atlantic as we go through to Saturday. So the ECM wanting to break down that cold pattern, that cold southeasterly to easterly wind as we go through into the weekend. We go into this flat westerly flow, so that's more in line with the GFS, and then next week turning increasingly unsettled and maybe even quite stormy as well as we go up to day 10. Low pressure is well and truly in control with winds from off the Atlantic Ocean. These are the various options that are on the table at the moment at day 10 with the ECMWF ensembles. This is taking us to the 20th of December. So we have 11 ensemble members that have below average heights over and to the west of the UK. These are very unsettled, bringing in these westerly winds. And this includes the operational ECMWF run that we was just looking at. Then we have another 10 that are also unsettled, but these ones are further south with below pressure. And what these ones are doing is pulling in quite a cold east or northeasterly flow with some ridging in the Atlantic and up towards Greenland as well. So those are a little bit colder with the unsettled weather. The trough is that bit further south, and we would probably be pulling in some colder air from the east. We've got another 8 which have day 10 low pressure out to the west, but also quite a strong blocking feature over Scandinavia. So those ones are pulling in southerly to southeasterly winds. Could be quite cold over in the east. Another 8 have low pressure centred almost over the top of the country quite weakly. Then we have a third, so there's a real split in the ECM ensembles at day 10. So many options on the table. We have another 7 with below average heights generally down to the south, and so these would be pulling up quite cold air from quite mild air, I should say, from a southerly direction. And then finally we have 7 that have low pressure down to our south, down here, well to our south, high pressure out to the northwest. These will be pulling in quite cold winds from the northeast at day 10. And then we can go actually to Christmas Day with the ECMWF ensembles. So the postage stamps look like this. We have 30 ECMWF ensemble members that look very unsettled for Christmas Day with a trough of low pressure over the top of the country. We bring in those westerly winds, and then we have 21, a more minimal option that has high pressure out to the west, but also up to the north as well. Those aren't particularly cold, but they would be colder than these options just here. But there are so many options on the table for day 10, but I think anything beyond that has to have a huge health warning with it really at the moment. Finally, the CFS V2, so these are 500 millibar heights broken down into weekly periods. The first weekly period will take us from the 10th through to the 16th of December, with below average heights over to west of the country, above average heights down to the south. There is the block up to the northeast, but CFS generally sees us with these westerly winds through the coming week. Then we go through to the next 10-day period with below average heights up to the north, below average heights to the northwest, above average heights to the southwest. Again, these ones pulling in the winds from the southwest, so they would be quite mild. Week 3, again, the above average heights are to the south, the below average heights are to the north. This is the 24th to the 30th, so Christmas Eve to the 30th of December, looking pretty mild there, and mainly dry actually, with high pressure to the south. And then we finish up on New Year's Eve through to the 6th of January, again below average heights to the north, above average heights to the southwest, and yes, we're pulling winds in from a westerly direction. So CFS sees this westerly, these westerlies continuing for the next month. So temperature anomalies in week ahead, much milder than average. Week 2, temperature anomalies. I'll rush through these very quick because they're very samey. Week 2, temperature anomalies, very mild as well. Week 3, temperature anomalies are also exceptionally mild. And then week 4, temperature anomalies, you've guessed it, they're coming out, exceptionally mild as well. And in terms of precipitation, so week 1 is much wetter than average. Week 2 is a little bit above average with rainfall as well, heading up towards Christmas. Then week 3 looks a bit drier over Christmas, 24th to 30th of December, a little bit drier. Close to average, but it's not as wet as it is in weeks 1 and 2. And then week 4, from New Year's Eve to the 6th of January, takes us back to being generally a bit above average with precipitation. So, what do we make of all that lot? Well, what we can say first of all is that we are going to be bringing in some colder air from the east in the next few days. So, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, looking quite cold. The get to the weekend, it looks like the ECM and the GFS want to push that cold air out of the way and get us into a westerly. The GEM's not so sure about that. The GEM isn't as progressive with the Atlantic return over the weekend. So there's some question marks about that. How quickly will the westerlies come back, and will there be some snow as we transition from the cold southeasterly to the milder southwesterly over the weekend? All to be revealed on that. Next week looks quite unsettled as we run up towards Christmas. And then I think from Christmas onwards it will be a case of keeping an eye on the stratosphere over the North Pole. Will we get that big stratospheric warming? If we do, what will the impacts be as we move in towards the new year? There's no sign whatsoever from the CFS of any impacts from that stratospheric warming. But then again, the CFS could well be wrong about that. We'll just have to wait and see. Right, so that's your second video done today. We'll be back tonight with the 18th Christmas update. That's all for now, and thanks for watching.